Taking care of one's offspring is the most marvelous job around. It's also the hardest job in the world. It's exhausting and complicated, and sometimes even exasperating. There are times when you can almost understand that some animals don't take care of their young at all. Nonetheless, most species, including us humans, share the most intense and powerful feeling that a brain can generate: the love we feel for children. What we living beings feel, we feel with an almond-shaped organ that almost all of us have in the center of our skulls: the amygdala. Affection, fondness, liking, and love are words that refer to the emotions that we feel, normally for our partner and almost always for our children. The difference in the intensity of the feeling between some animals and others isn't as great as it might seem, judging by the size of the animals. The greater or lesser extent of the feelings of affection can be measured above all in the ability to project them over time, to our lives. And that is determined in large measure by the type of brain each species has. That's to say, a termite can feel a very intense sensation when it takes care of its sisters. But what a monkey feels when it protects its young, even though it may be similarly intense, is much deeper and more complex. Monkey and termite may both be ready to sacrifice their lives for their relatives, but Mama Monkey will be more aware of the consequences than Sister Termite. And that makes all the difference. The amygdala is a region of the brain that is evolutionarily much more primitive than what we might call the rational regions. That's why all animals feel emotions, although very few know that they feel them. In the history of animals, emotions emerged at almost the very beginning, and only in recent times have thought and consciousness appeared. A spider doesn't know that it is a spider. It isn't aware of its individuality. But it feels emotions that make it behave in a certain way in different circumstances during its life. It doesn't know its life is short. It doesn't know what children are. It doesn't know what's just about to happen, but it's restless, anxious, and begins to weave, driven by a new emotion that leads it to adhere itself tightly to the wall with its silk. And of course, it certainly doesn't know that it is pregnant. What we humans would call childbirth, a multiple childbirth to be sure, takes place much like our own, involuntarily, uncontrollably. No one has taught the spider how to do this. Its behavior is written in its genes. Nor does it have to learn how to wrap up its eggs with more silk, even though this silk is of a different type. Each movement of its legs is guided by an ancestral instinct that has gradually selected the best spiders, the ones most able to protect their eggs. Her technique isn't perfect, but almost. When her ootheca, or egg sac, is ready, she releases it from its safety anchors and bites it firmly with her chelicerae, or mouth parts. She will hold it this way for about a month. She won't eat. She won't go for a walk. She won't do anything besides take care of her eggs, without even knowing how long she will have to do this. Her instinct will be her stopwatch. The spider won't do anything else for her children. Although yesterday she would have died for them, from now on, she will ignore them. Her little ones will scatter without a word of thanks. If their mother had died, exhausted after her task, they would have eaten her. But since she's young, she'll lay more eggs next year. This mother bear has spent the whole winter with her 2 newborn cubs, cooped up in a small cave that they barely fit in. She has nursed them at the expense of the fat reserves that she had stored in her body. But now she has regained her figure, and the effort of these past several months has made her terribly hungry. Nevertheless, she doesn't go out to eat, even though she knows where there is food for her. She has to stay with her cubs, up here in the mountains, where it's harder to find enough food to fill her belly, but where it is also less likely they will run into a male bear. At this time of year, if they crossed paths with a male that wasn't their biological father, that would be the end of the she-bear's motherhood. These omnivores, like many other animals that eat meat, such as the carnivorous lion, kill others' cubs without a second thought. It's a horrific instinct whose aim is to induce the mother to go into heat again in order to be able to mate with her. The only thing that matters for the males is that the genes that survive are their own. It's cruel, it's savage, but it's one of the biological strategies that has enabled bears to survive. In their first few days of life, all animals must become masters at hiding or they won't survive. The greatest danger for these seagull chicks is the adult seagulls that have made their nests next to the chicks. Cannibalizing others' young takes place among many species, and here it's commonplace. Only the best parents can prevent it. The breeding colonies of the yellow-legged gull are very crowded. There's a nest every few meters, and so danger lies all around. And that's why yellow-legged gull chicks are nidifugous. That is, only a few hours after hatching, they leave the nest as best they can. Now, almost safe, they wait for somebody to bring them some food. Hidden among the vegetation, they trust that they won't be discovered by any of the 20,000 gulls flying low over the colony in search of a slowpoke destined not to survive. Seagulls may be a threat to other gulls' chicks, but they won't let any other living being approach their shared breeding colony either. Covered by the noise of the group, the newborn chicks peep softly to hold their mother's attention. She's always close by and is also waiting. Her mate left in search of food a long time ago, and she doesn't understand why he's not back yet. With natural exceptions, seagull mating pairs are very stable. They're considered monogamous animals, and their lifelong bond helps them to take better care of their young. Although if they have problems, if they fail in the task of taking care of them, they will probably go their separate ways. But that isn't going to be the case, since the father has finally returned and has fulfilled his duty to his family. His hungriest child is the first to receive him. The chick hits him repeatedly on the red part of his beak to stimulate him to regurgitate. The little one knows exactly what it has to do to get its fishy baby food. The chicks are very egotistical. This one tries to wolf down everything Daddy brought back. It doesn't care how hungry its sibling is. But the father knows how to measure it out, and he wants both of them to survive. The food that mammal mamas offer their offspring is much simpler than that of birds. And to top it off, it comes straight from the factory. They don't have to look for it or prepare it. What's more, the fresh milk is probably much healthier than the gull's fish burger. Nursing is the best way to receive nutrients, as well as attention and care. The action of suckling isn't just a way to feed. It also has a lot to do with forging the emotional bonds between mother and child, which can last throughout life. Nursing is a recent evolutionary success, and only the mammals have discovered its advantages. However, this maternal task can't be prolonged beyond the first few months of life without mixing this milk diet with other foods. This job is very taxing, and any mother that is nursing her child gets very tired. We could almost say that she is literally using herself up, and that makes her very hungry. If your mother has a voracious appetite, that's no problem if you're a mammal. But if you're a spider, from one day to the next, your mother could stop recognizing you and start seeing you as just another prey. To avoid this behavior, she's controlled by hormones. We already know that spiders don't know that they're spiders. They can't even recognize their offspring as their own children. She doesn't know what a child is. But she's not hungry. As long as she stays close to her newborn family, some hormones in her blood control her instincts to hunt and feed, keeping them dormant. You might ask how we know that, since nobody's ever been able to speak to a spider. But scientists have observed the long period of absolute fasting that female spiders stick to religiously while they're taking care of their young. What's more, those hormones are so powerful that even if another spider literally walked over her, she wouldn't attack it. It's as if she's in a sort of peaceful trance that without a doubt will protect her little ones from mama until they scatter into the wider world. The truth is that with problems like these, some species would almost be better off without a mother, or at least to never meet her. This newborn salamander will never meet its mother. No one will take care of it. In reality, it doesn't need any care. It can have up to 40 brothers and sisters, so if a few die, that wouldn't be a big loss in terms of the salamander population. That's how coldly this species sees motherhood. The mothers make an effort to produce and develop many embryos with the hope that some will survive. But once they're born, so long, hasta la vista. Obviously, salamanders are not model mamas. but they are a very unusual case in nature. They can give birth in 2 different ways. This is ovoviviparity, in which the offspring is born inside a bag and must slowly transform into an adult through a metamorphosis. Its branchia will gradually disappear. Its skin will grow thicker, and it will change color. And finally, it will step out as a new being. In other environmental conditions, the species can also give birth to its offspring viviparously. The young are born in a more developed state, but fewer in number. The majority fall victim to cannibalism among the embryos. The sacrifice of the least fit is atrocious. One more thing that should separate us humans from the beasts. Mother snakes are the complete opposite of human mothers. Except for the big pythons, it can be said that these reptiles are the worst parents on the face of the earth. Although, at least they don't eat their children. Well, almost never. This pregnant female has sought out a place to hide her eggs. It's a damp, dark place that will maintain a constant temperature. That way, she can duck the responsibility of incubating them. If she's chosen the right place and nobody finds her treasure, her offspring will hatch in about 2 months. But she'll never know if she was successful. Nonetheless, oviparous reproduction isn't always as easy as laying some eggs and then hitting the road again. Great crested grebes lay their eggs on floating nests. It's safe, but more complicated. For birds, laying and incubating eggs is an infinitely more complex task than it is for reptiles, or any other of the so-called cold-blooded animals. If the temperature rises or falls just a degree or two Celsius, cold-blooded animals start to feel terrible. And if it rises or falls a little more, it could kill them. For eggs, variations in temperature are even more critical. So mother birds have to spend the whole period of incubation, which is sometimes entire months, on top of the eggs, not leaving them for an instant, providing the warmth of their bellies if it's cold, or the shade of their wings if it's too hot. In some species, the males share this task with their mates, taking turns. Although it's almost always the female that dedicates the most time to it. Snake eggs, like those of the majority of reptiles, incubate at ambient temperature. That's very convenient. However, that still entails a few problems. If the weather is a little warmer than usual during the embryonic development phase, then most of the young will hatch as males. If, on the other hand, the average temperature falls below the normal range, the newborns will tend to be females. Sometimes, when the weather is really extreme, all the siblings are of the same sex. Although scientists are still arguing over whether this reproductive strategy benefits or hurts the evolution of these species, the individual snakes that hatch couldn't care less whether they are male or female. The sexual roles of snakes aren't very different. And life won't change much for this newborn snake, whether it was born a male or a female. What would be a stroke of good luck would be not to run into mom or dad just now, since this kind of snake is ophiophagous. That is, it eats snakes. Little grebes won't hesitate to bear the weight of having offspring, literally. During the first few weeks of their lives, they carry their 2 chicks hidden among their plumage, and they feed them a non-stop diet of fish and live insects. There's nothing healthier. Constant protection, feeding, and transportation. What could be better? All that attention could lead to spoiling their children. But little grebes, working as a couple, are also very good teachers. Today, they've started the first lesson in independence. The parents are feeding them in the water, so the little ones will get used to leaving their parents' laps. As the days go by, their young will gradually learn how to be a little grebe. This morning, they have one of their last classes, and it's a hard one. Diving. When the little ones have done a good job, their parents and teachers have the chance to shower them with a little attention, to reward them somehow. In this case, letting them get back up on mom or dad and sleep easy. Now that's positive reinforcement. The crocodile family is another exception among the reptiles. When the time comes to lay her eggs, each mother isolates herself in a secluded pond. She buries her eggs very close to the shore, in a safe and secret spot. The embryos incubate on their own at the ambient temperature. But during the 3 months that they are developing, she is on constant guard. When they hatch and mother and children are reunited, they stay together for a few months more. Sometimes the dry season can catch the family by surprise. But the mother, who could look for a better place, knows that her offspring wouldn't be able to follow her. So she stays with them, putting up with the hunger and whatever else may come along, as they wait for rain. For now, only birds of prey come down from the sky. But the mother's presence will keep them at bay. The efficient maternal protection of the crocodilian order ensures a much higher percentage of survivors when compared with other reptiles. Looking after your young is worth the trouble. The European tarantula, or wolf spider, is another exception, like the caiman or the salamander. Nature is full of unique cases. This spider doesn't just wait for the birth of her 500 little ones. She's going to carry them around for days, for weeks, to give her offspring a better shot at surviving. Her young get off her back one by one, wherever their instinct or fortune tells them to. And in that way, their mother manages to scatter them over a much larger territory than they could have covered by themselves. It's the way this spider knows how to take care of her little ones so they can live. In the exceptional ant method of parental care, baby ants never meet their parents. If you're an ant, the king, your father, died shortly after conceiving you. And the queen, who gave birth to you in the form of an egg, will never grant you an audience with her. In the ant world, everyone is born a prince. Everyone is a brother of everyone else. And yet none of them will ever reign. In exchange, while you're a larva, you're taken care of by thousands of worker ants, who also bring you your meals, and by thousands of soldier ants who protect you from any possible enemy. That's how ants keep their young safe. Specifically, the army ants, the much-feared marabunta, have an especially efficient system of caring for their descendants. They don't live in an ordinary underground anthill like the rest of the ant species. No, they organize their ants' nest wherever they please. They're nomads, but when it comes time to rest, they link up with each other, mandibles to feet, forming walls and passageways with their bodies. They bite each other, creating a living anthill, and the larvae are placed in the center, barricaded behind layers and layers of ants, and underneath a thick and threatening layer of soldier ants. It's a magnificent fortification that offers maximum security. The next morning, when the ants got underway again, once more searching for food, many of the worker ants become porters, and each one picks up a larva in its mandibles. And the ant carries that larva throughout the whole trip with no rest. $1 million porters for 1 million larvae, plus the soldiers in their escort, and the workers that collect the food. The army ant system is tremendously efficient. In general, all the social insects, whether they are ants, bees, wasps, or termites, all of them have developed impressive methods to care for their young. They're even able to sacrifice their lives for them. Without a doubt, their organization has led them to become some of the most abundant and successful animals on the planet, even if they don't enjoy the affection between mother and child. It is undeniable that the best parental relationships belong to the classic figure of the mammalian mother. And the best of the best are the ones that take care of you and recognize you for the longest period of time, for their whole lives if possible. The bond between mother and child that leopards share with their young is one of the strongest among all the felines. This mother is constantly watching over her cub with no rest and no one to relieve her. No matter what happens, she won't take her eye off her little one, not for a second. There are a few animals out there that will kill leopard cubs. She will teach it to climb trees to look for prey and to run away from danger. She will teach it to hide in the vegetation to stalk its prey without being spotted. And she will help it to get food for as long as the cub doesn't know how or is unable to on its own. Young leopards are able to take care of themselves when they're about 1 year old. Nevertheless, they tend to stay with their mothers almost 1 year longer. That's when their relationship is strengthened the most. And whatever they do from that moment on, they won't forget each other for the rest of their lives. This cub is a little female. And that's why her future territory may be next to or even overlap her mother's. So they may see each other every once in a while, if they're lucky. When the offspring is a male, it's almost impossible to maintain their relationship, however. The other males in the area will force the new youngster to go as far away as possible. It's tough, but it works, preventing inbreeding and improving the variation of genes. Nonetheless, despite the great care that felines shower on their cubs, many, the majority, don't survive. This little one had 4 siblings when she was born, and she's the only one left. It may seem like the world's upside down, but predators are the animals with the highest rate of infant mortality. It's logical, however, that the percentage of the young of the big cats that survive is much lower than the percentage of the young zebras that survive, for example. There have to be fewer hunters than hunted, and there have to be fewer carnivores than herbivores. It's the feeding strategy that rules the ecology of every ecosystem. In this way, the essential carbon with which we living beings build our cells passes from the air to the plants, from the plants to the herbivores, and from the herbivores to the carnivores. In the end, it's this chemical cycle that gives shape to the relationships between parents and offspring. Thus, the mothers of herbivores don't have more than 1 child a year at most, while felines have to have a bunch of kids to ensure their demographic success. Lions have litters of as many as 15 cubs, but only 1 out of every 20 lion cubs reaches adulthood. For offspring to become full-grown adults that are able to take care of themselves on their own and able to begin their own lineage, they need moments of independence, moments of solitude, time to sort things out on their own, without mom or dad's help. In other words, they need a little of the snake's parental strategy and to be left to their own devices. To grow strong and healthy, the young have to take risks, and their parents have to avoid overprotecting them, which only holds them back from reaching maturity and creates spoiled and incompetent youngsters that only know how to freeload off their parents. In nature, there are no mama's boys. Nevertheless, it's also true that some wild youngsters never seem to find the right time to leave the nest. In these cases, the parents find themselves forced to employ certain strategies. Sometimes they have to use very tough tactics that might even be considered child abuse. But they've got no other choice. A black vulture incubates its eggs for almost 2 months. But it has to take care of its chicks after hatching for 4 more long months. That's one of the longest periods of raising chicks in the bird world. That's half a year of being tied to one spot, which the adult vultures have to return to several times a day, where they can be located and which they can't run away from. It's very stressful for the parents, but the chick feels quite comfy and completely safe here. He doesn't know anything else. He doesn't know anything about life and doesn't understand that nothing bad can happen to him on this platform 20 meters above the ground. Here, somebody always winds up bringing him food, and there's nothing threatening. So it's logical for him to resist leaving the nest. His tendency to stay is a child's natural inertia. But time is up for this vulture chick. He began to flap his wings a month ago, and he measures almost 3 meters from wingtip to wingtip. He's ready physically. He just needs a little nudge to make him get over his fear and start flying. His mother hasn't brought him any food for days now. She comes back empty-handed because she wants hunger to push him out of the nest. These are moments of tension, difficult but necessary moments. She mustn't give in. It's very hard for her to do this, as accustomed as she is to taking care of him and bringing him his dinner. He has to grow up, and only he can take that step. Sometimes the wind blows hard, and this motivates him. He gains confidence. It seems like today will be the day. But no, not yet. Maybe tomorrow. Some people may think that they see similarities between the offspring of vultures and humans. And that's true. We share with most species some very specialized behavior towards our young. During childhood, we protect them, feed them, teach them, and help them in every way possible. We've discovered that caring for our children is one of the most necessary and gratifying experiences we will ever have. And without a doubt, the most human thing is to love them for life.